Hello, this is Jeremy Bivens, and I'm going to be talking to you about my Discovery Learning Triangle Inequality Theorem activity. So, whenever I am looking at our students' current knowledge in high school, the middle school standards are something that they struggle with. So, that's something we always have to usually start with in our high school lessons. We remediate up to the point that we then can start our actual high school standards. And this actually comes into play. Uh, the triangle inequality theorem actually starts in middle school in seventh grade, but we have found many of our students do not recall that by the time they're in 10th grade. So this is something that we remediate on to actually get to the high school standard of just being able to use theorems, understand and apply them. Since this is a discovery learning activity, I try to make the learning target a little bit more vague, and then maybe at the end we supply the, using the right terminology, vocabulary as a part of it. We are going to determine side length measures to make a triangle, and then the fancy way would be able to say that they can develop and apply the triangle inequality theorem. So with our warm-up, our bell ringer students will be used to this. This is something that we do every day. They're just going to be recalling use of our inequalities or equal sign. So they're going to be on 1 through 3, seeing if it's greater than, less than, or the equals. And then number 4, just listing out what they know about triangles. With when maybe it's isosceles, maybe they'll say something is right, and they'll describe a little bit about those. And that gives the students a little bit of context that we are going to be focusing on triangles, so they'll need to recall everything they know in a sense about their sides. All right, so with this, we actually dive into our learning activity next, where I'm going to get them in groups of 3, one student that's a low, a medium, high, and it's all based off of star scores. They're going to receive 3 pairs of scissors apiece. I'm going to make them do a little bit of work starting off, where they're going to be given this piece of paper, A through M on their letters, and they're of the measurements of 1 inch all the way up to 7 inches. And they're going to cut them out, and we're going to be using these pieces in the next part. Next, once we're all set, I'm going to give them the next piece of paper, and I'm going to give them the very specific instructions of read the instructions at the top and begin. So they're going to be taking their strips of paper, like A, B, and C, those those rectangles they've cut out to actually try to form a triangle. And it may take a little bit of going around to say, a triangle, you should have 3 vertexes. There shouldn't be any overlap, just to make sure that they understand that what a triangle should look like for this activity. And they're just going to be saying, yes, it makes a triangle, or no. I would probably, as I'm facilitating, encourage the students to actually put the measurement of A, B, and C, for example, on that first, actually write how many inches A is, how many B is, and C, and hopefully they can start getting a visualization of that number representation with that side length. So they're going to work through about 20 cases, and then our hope is they can jump to the conjecture with seeing that the sum of 2 has to be greater than the remaining, and it has to be that way for the 3 cases of each triangle, meaning each of those side lengths. So I'm going to give them time to work, see if they can jump to the conjecture, and I'm going to be listening for conversations, for things that they're observing, things that they're pointing out, maybe something they're struggling with. That way, when we get to the part we're all back together as a group, once everyone has completed that activity, I can start calling on specific students in the groups to say, what was that question you had, or what was an observation that you had with your group? Things that I've already heard, but I want everybody to listen to, because they could be wondering the same thing, but they're just not going to say it. Moving on. As that whole group, we're going to try to formalize the triangle inequality theorem. The A plus B is greater than C, and so on. and it may take a little bit for us to take all of our findings to get to that point. So step 3 as a group will be very important. Then I'm going to get them back to their groups after that formalization, and they're going to have this piece of paper where they, as a group, are going to be figuring out first, if I give you 3 measures, can it be a triangle? If I give you 2 lengths, what does the third have to be? And then it opens up to question 13, which is multiple parts, where you've got a 7 and a 9, and you got to figure out all the possible pieces for that remaining part of the triangle to be. We'll come back together as a group and go over our findings for the whole page and take any questions that people have. Finally, I'll get them back to their individual selves at their normal seat. They'll have an exit slip of 10 questions. I may cut that down to 5 based on time. I'm looking for 80% mastery to know if we're ready to move on to the next part, which would be writing the inequalities, given 2 side lengths for the range that something could be for that last leg. That'd be the next part of the lesson, if this scores high enough for the whole group. Or I might remediate based on the next day if I find enough people aren't getting it. Thank you all for listening, and I hope this is something that you can use in your classroom.